Through the ages, there have been many prevalent and consistent themes in iconography that encompass human life. From fertility and birth to warfare and death, these themes have been depicted in countless forms. Today, I will discuss fertility iconography, how this theme has been represented through different genders, empires, religions, and millenniums. The Venus of Willendorf, also called the Woman of Willendorf, is one of the earliest pieces of art and is dated to be around 25,000 years old. It is from the Upper Paleolithic period and is a symbol of fertility. The Venus was rediscovered in 1908 by Austro-Hungarian archaeologist Jose Simbathi at the small town named Willendorf in modern-day Austria. The Venus is 11 centimeters high and is carved out of stone. The Venus depicts a voluptuous woman wearing an ornamental hat that covers her face. The Venus is top heavy and has small feet, indicating that this piece is meant to be held in the hand rather than standing. This reveals that the Venus is meant to be a sort of personal charm. The figurine has exaggerated features, showing large breasts and pronounced genitalia. The figurine is also considerably fat, with a large protruding stomach, fat buttocks, and thick thighs. These features also indicate that the figure is meant to specifically be a fertility charm. The large breasts would show that the figurine could easily feed a baby. In the time of world prehistory, before the agricultural revolution and the domestication of animals, ancient humans were hunter-gatherers. It took considerable amounts of work to gather food, and any form of weight was seen as a sign of health. By carving the Venus to be overweight, something that would have been coveted, it would have shown that the figure was prosperous and able to carry and deliver healthy children. There's some new discourse, however, over the connection of weight and fertility for the Venus. From the modern lens of an endocrinologist, voiced in the journal article Obesity, a Venusian story of Paleolithic proportions, it argues that there may have been some underlying health issues causing the obesity that is actually detrimental to the fertility angle. They note that the obesity may be a symptom of polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is also associated with infertility. This theory does not give due diligence to the other aspects of the figurine. The figurine was meant to be small and handheld, something that would be personal and likely religious. It is unlikely that someone would carry something so intimate that symbolizes an undesired trait. It is much more likely that the depicted weight of the figurine is supposed to be a positive sign of fertility. Around 20,000 years later, there is a different example of fertility iconography, the Queen Mother. In 1910, excavators from the Harvard University Museum of Fine Arts in Boston rediscovered a Dayat statue from Menkaura's Valley Temple in Egypt. On the Giza Plateau, this temple lay next to Menkaura's pyramid, the smallest of the Giza pyramids. In these temples, religious rites were done for the dead. Inside lay triad statues that were made of schist, and most importantly, a Dayat figure of Pharaoh Menkaure and a queen. In his journal, archaeologist George Reitner wrote about the discovery of the piece, writing, Giza, January 18th, 1910. In the evening, just before work, stopped a small boy from the gang of thieves' hole in the strip. He appeared suddenly at my side and said, "Come." In the lower part of the hole, the female head of a statue, 3/4 life size, of bluish state had just come in view from the sand. It was too late to clear it, but immediately afterwards a block of dirt fell away and showed a male head on the right, a pair statue of king and queen. A photograph was taken in the failing light, and an armed guard of 20 men put on for the night. This Dayat statue, or a statue that depicts two people, is nearly life-size and is dated back from the Old Kingdom. These two figures are half encased in stone, their backs and limbs attached to a back pillar that acts like a pedestal. It is assumed that this statue was in a niche and the figures were meant to appear emerging from the wall. Similar to other statues from the period, they were carved to appear cubic and rigid, with their bodies facing forward. Menkaure is shown as standing straight with his arms clutched to the side and his left leg forward. He is carved to look like the prime of his life, with his body muscled, well-formed, and broad shoulders. He wears only a short kilt, his royal neme's headdress, and an artificial beard. To quote the textbook, he is the representation of youthful, masculine virility, shown in the strength of his body. Next to him stands an unnamed female figure that is assumed to be his mother. She is the central point of this statue. She wears a wig and is dressed in a tight, form-fitting dress. She is carved to look strong and young and encircles her arm around Menkaure. The textbook also describes her as articulating the ideal mature feminine beauty. Uniquely, the queen figure has notable traits of importance and power in comparison. She is of equal height and size to Menkaure, and in ancient Egyptian art, women were often smaller in stature to show their inferior importance, indicating that she was regarded as important. The statue also shows signs of being carved in the actual image of its real life counterparts, with her face showing individuality rather than just the standardized features often seen in ancient Egyptian art. This leads to the sense of intimacy, perhaps a personal reminder of the real life figures. Due to these factors, such as the queen holding Menkaure, the personalization, and the size of the queen, it's speculated this statue is the central figure. Given the context that it was found in the temple connecting to Menkaure's tomb, it symbolizes fertility and rebirth of the pharaoh in the afterlife. The queen mother becomes a symbol of fertility. Rather than being shown as fertile through their personal features, such as the emphasized genitalia or a large breast seen as the Venus of Wildenorf, the queen is shown as fertile through the raising and caring of her powerful son. The concept of fertility tied to the queen mother is not an unknown idea to African art. It is also seen in the ancient Egyptian statue of the portrait head of Queen T with the crown of two feathers, where King T is elevated to the statue of a goddess due to her son's dependence on her. Later on, this is also seen in some Benin art, where the queen mother would give birth and dedicate their life to raising the future ruler. Around 3,000 years later is another fertility icon, the Madonna and Child. This painting, painted by Italian artist Duccio de Buonantegna, was created during 1290 to 1300 AD and is a great example of late medieval artwork. Rooted deeply in the Christian religion, this art piece showcases the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus. Thought to have been an icon that hung above an altar, this piece of art was created to be a functional item. It was a religious icon to be worshipped, rather than a traditional painting or piece of art to be appreciated. The Virgin Mary is shown carrying the baby Jesus, looking solemnly divine with a halo encircling her head. She is dressed in a rich green robe and veil that only reveals her hand and face. The baby Jesus reaches up to caress his mother's face in an act of intimacy. The painting has an extra level of realism not seen in earlier medieval art. The figures appear to be three-dimensional, with organic lines, shading to great depth, and realistic anatomy, not something traditionally seen in earlier medieval art. The artwork is indicative of late medieval period, being deeply rooted in the Christian religion. This fertility iconography is different from the pieces seen before. The Virgin Mary has no large breasts that are coveted to feed a child, no exposed genitalia. In fact, she is mostly covered. The Virgin Mary is not a powerful goddess-like symbol because her son is. She is divine because she was chosen by God. She is a fertility symbol despite being a virgin. The Virgin Mary's fertility is deeply rooted in faith and religion. Furthering on from this piece, there are countless versions from various artists of the two. Some that show the exposed Virgin Mary breastfeeding the baby Jesus, yet in this piece it's not needed as the Virgin Mary is fertile due to the will of God. This belief has lasted to even today, and there are prayers that are meant towards the Virgin Mary to ask for fertility. For one example, one prayer asks to God to grant that my body to conceive and give birth to a beautiful, healthy baby in your holy image. And Heavenly Father and Holy Mother, hear this prayer. These three art pieces, even though all different, all share fertility iconography. Through thousands of years, fertility iconography has persisted. Whether it's a crude figurine from the Paleolithic era, an archaic statue from ancient Egypt, or a religious painting from the medieval period.